the intervention of naval support, the big guns of the destroyer Buchanan. The Americans had always expected the task of capturing the small islands to be difficult, but on Guadalcanal itself, success proved to be relatively straightforward, at least at first. By the afternoon of the second day of operations, American Marines had moved west from Red Beach to secure possession of the nearly completed Japanese airfield, a site quickly given the name Henderson Field in honor of a hero of the Battle of Midway. The Japanese forces had simply fled to the hills. As dusk fell on the 8th of August 1942, the first objective of the operation had been achieved. And although losses on the Northern Islands had been heavy, General Vandergrift could reflect on a job well done. But any overconfidence would prove to be premature. As soon as the Americans made their move, Admiral Mikawa of the Japanese 4th Inner South Sea Fleet ordered a battle group to set sail for Guadalcanal, through the Solomon Islands channel that became known as the Slot. But before they could arrive, Mikawa also dispatched a force of bombers with fighter escort against the American forces. Alerted, Admiral Fletcher dispatched 60 Wildcat fighters to greet them in the skies over Guadalcanal. In a fierce dogfight, 16 Japanese aircraft were lost, against a total of 11 American planes. Admiral Turner decided to move his own fleet into defensive positions north and south of Savo Island, with the destroyers Blue and Ralph Talbot in the advanced positions. It was these outposts that were first sighted by the Japanese battle groups at 0100 hours on the morning of the 9th of August. Minutes later, Admiral Mikawa's cruiser fleet sailed past, entirely unnoticed. Now he ordered his small, cruiser-borne float planes into the air. At 0145 hours, their pilots began to drop flares that revealed the full presence of the Allied ships. Now Mikawa gave the order for the torpedoes to be launched and the big guns to be fired. The Battle of Savo Island had begun. The Japanese had taken their enemy by surprise, and they made their advantage pay. The Allied cruisers Vincennes, Quincy, Canberra and Astoria were all lost. Another was seriously damaged as the Japanese battle group swept round Savo Island and back out through the Slot to the northwest. The Imperial Navy had triumphed in the first of 4 major battles that would take place in the seas around Guadalcanal. For the Marine commander Vandergrift, this loss of supporting firepower was a disaster, and the Battle of Savo Island was a comprehensive victory for the Japanese. But the Americans could console themselves with the fact that Mikawa's fleet had not taken out the transport ships. But more bad news had already reached the Marines. In the hours before the Japanese attack, General Vandergrift was informed of a decision made by Admiral Fletcher. He had decided to withdraw his force of carriers in the south, having agreed with his superior, Admiral Gormley, that fuel and aircraft resources were insufficient to maintain a secure presence in the region. As a consequence of this controversial decision, Admiral Turner announced that he would also have to withdraw his amphibious task force. By the end of the 9th of August, just 2 days into the operation, Admiral Turner's ships had left Guadalcanal, taking half of the Marines' supplies and material with him. There had been no time to unload any more. On Guadalcanal, and on the smaller islands to the north, the 1st Marine Division were left to fend for themselves. It was potentially a disastrous turn of events. There was nothing else for Vandergrift to do but secure his defensive perimeter as best he could, and set his men to the task of completing the Henderson Field airstrip. If it could be brought into operation quickly, it would be a precious asset to the now isolated Marines. The work was hampered by the lack of materials and also by the constant presence of Japanese warplanes in the skies above. Before long, the enemy would be even closer at hand. In the hot, humid jungle conditions, General Vandegrift's inexperienced men were quickly learning the often desperate facts of war. The Japanese 17th Army of Lieutenant General Hyakutake was now ordered to retake Guadalcanal, and he selected the 35th Infantry Brigade of Major General Kawaguchi to carry out the task. It was now that Rear Admiral Tanaka came up with the imaginative idea of moving troops from New Britain to Guadalcanal using fast night convoys of cruisers and destroyers, the so-called rat runs which became known as the Tokyo Express. Such was the effectiveness of the procedure in delivering Japanese forces to Guadalcanal. On the 18th of August, with the Henderson Field still not operational, the first of these night convoys succeeded in landing 2 echelons of troops. To the west, a special landing force went ashore at Kokumbona. To the east, at Taivu Point, the 2nd Battalion of the 28th Infantry Regiment, under the command of Colonel Ichiki. It was a bold move, perhaps a little too bold. General Hyakutake decided not to wait for his scattered 35th Infantry Brigade to form up. Instead, he acted at once, and Ichiki's men quickly advanced from their beachhead. By the evening of the 20th of August, they had reached the edge of the American position to the east of Alligator Creek. That night, Colonel Ichiki launched his attack. It was a fearsome engagement that became known as the Battle of the Temaru. The Japanese hurled themselves at the Americans in a bayonet charge. Their courage was phenomenal as they ran into the line of American artillery, machine gun and infantry fire. When they were forced to withdraw, the inspirational Ichiki ordered the survivors to regroup, and once again they charged the American positions. But the bravery of Ichiki's men would not be enough. By the following afternoon, the Japanese assault had failed, and the last of Ichiki's men found themselves surrounded by an American force, now reinforced by light armor. At some point, Colonel Ichiki himself died in the fighting, although a popular myth suggests that he committed harakiri when he realized that the battle was lost. The American victory at the Temaru was total, and the battlefield was a scene of slaughter. 800 of Ichiki's 900 men were dead. Significantly, the final elimination of the Japanese troops was assisted by American power in the air. The Henderson Field was now operational, and on August the 20th, 19 Wildcat fighters and 12 Dauntless dive bombers landed on Guadalcanal. The American occupation was now a less tentative enterprise. But the battle for the island was still far from won. In late August and early September, the ships of the Tokyo Express brought substantial numbers of troops to the east and west of Vandegrift's perimeter. In early September, the American commander brought his raiders and paratroops onto Guadalcanal itself, and on September the 7th dispatched them east to Tasimbako, a village believed to be a center of Japanese strength. Vandegrift's intelligence was accurate. Japanese troops were based in Tasimbako, and a brief engagement resulted before the raiders captured the village. But the Japanese contingent was small, and Colonel Edson soon found out why. A far larger force had been present in Tasimbako, but they had now moved on. This was the 35th Brigade of General Kawaguchi, and it had set off south into the jungle with the likely intention of moving west before attacking Henderson Field to the north. Hurriedly, General Vandegrift organized his men into position for the suspected Japanese attack. His assumption was that his Japanese counterpart would strike against the ridge that lay to the south of the airstrip. If they did, they would find the American raiders and paratroops waiting for them. Vandegrift's assumption was correct. On the evening of the 12th of September, Japanese warships unleashed a barrage of shell fire, not against the airfield, but against the ridge that would provide the grim name for the battle to come, Bloody Ridge. It would be no exaggeration. when the Japanese shelling ceased, Kawaguchi's men made an initial assault that pushed the American defenders back.